I'm going to start this video out kind of like I did my last one about my boat crash with kind of a public service announcement or a safety message, I guess. I got a lot of good response from that last video. A lot of people said kind of opened their eyes to things that could happen on a boat. Not just in the comments on YouTube, but I had people I ran into that I had no idea even knew I had a YouTube channel that said, hey, I saw that video about you crashing your boat. You've been on a boat more than anybody I know. If that could happen to you, it could happen to me. So it's really kind of opened my eyes to things. So this is one that's really important, and this is nothing new. I've shared the stories I'm getting ready to tell you with hundreds of people over the years, and this is a really more important safety message, I think, for people that like to be in the outdoors or be on water like myself. So what I'm going to do is tell you some advice my dad gave me. Probably the best advice I ever got concerning the outdoors, and then I'm going to tell you a couple stories. One about something that happened to me that drove what my dad said home, and then another story about why kind of preys on my mind to this day. Something I didn't do. You'll see what I'm talking about in a minute. All right, so the first story begins. My dad grew up on a river. My grandpa grew up on a river and in the outdoors, as did I. And ever since I was a little bitty kid, as long as I can remember, my dad told me, don't ever fight the current. He said, if you fall into the river, he said, it doesn't matter if you fall in right here. You don't have to get back to where you fell in at. Everybody, in their mind, they freak out and they think, oh, I fell in, I got to get back to the boat. If the current's pulling you away, don't fight it. He said, just let the current carry you. Crab angle over to the bank, and in my dad's exact words, he said, what the hell does it matter if you're 500 feet down the bank when you get out, as long as you're alive? He said, don't fight it. He said he had seen things happen. And, my dad's advice is based on real life experience. I've got an old newspaper article from the 20s where my grandfather saved a woman's life who fell in the river and was drowning. Her husband died. His buddy tried to get her husband, couldn't get him, but he got the lady and saved her. They had to walk like 3 miles in the freezing temperatures to find the nearest phone or something. It's a pretty interesting story. That would have been around 1926, I think, something like that. And then my dad saved a few people. One summer he fished one lady out of the river 3 times. I don't know if she was a drunk or if she was just really unlucky, but he saved her life 3 times. So they had seen this stuff firsthand, and so they gave me this advice. But my dad said, don't ever fight the current. He said, people fall in. He said, anybody can swim in a swimming pool. You can swim 1,000 meters in a swimming pool. It's not a big deal because you're 3 feet away from either a rope or the side of the pool. There's really no danger. But he said it's a whole lot different when you're out there in a natural waterway and you've got the current pulling on you. There's nothing within 50 or 100 yards or more that you can get a hold of for safety, and you got 1 or 2 foot waves smacking you in the face. He said that's a whole different ball game, and people panic. People who are good swimmers oftentimes freak out and panic. So he said, don't ever fight the current and stay calm. So if you fall in where there's a current, just let it carry you. Like he said, if you don't have to get back where you fell in. If you get out down there, you may have to walk through the weeds a few feet, but you're still alive. And the other thing is, don't get all wound up. That he said that's where people get in trouble. They panic, they don't think straight or clearly, and they fight. And as an example, think about if you're running up a hill as hard as you can, you're out of breath. What happens if you run even harder? You're done. You've got to slow down. But when people fall in the water and they're fighting and trying to swim, they freak out even more. They fight harder, and then they exhaust themselves that much more quickly. How far can you sprint at a dead sprint? For how long? Maybe 20, 30 seconds if you're in great shape. How long can you run at a pretty good pace? Maybe a half hour to an hour if you're in really good shape. But how long can you walk? Most of us, unless you got a health issue, you can probably walk all day long. It's the same thing with swimming. If you're fighting it, you may not last 10 seconds till you're gassed. But if you just kind of, you can float or do the elementary backstroke or side stroke all day long without getting worn out. So think about not fighting it, relax, and just walk instead of run, so to speak, when you're in the water. Don't panic. And that's easier said than done. And that's why I'm going to tell you this next story. So what happened to me, this was in 1991. I remember it like yesterday. I was doing the field school at the Clampett site, an archaeology site I have another video about. And it was either late May or early June, but I remember it was a really hot day that day. And we had been out digging all day long in the heat, and Clampett site was real sandy soil, so it's just like being on a beach. The heat's reflecting up from below you, plus the sun's coming down above you. Really hot. I was 19 years old and in great shape, so we dug all day long out there. And then when we got done, I had a couple buddies who worked at the local General Motors plant. They were a lot smarter than me. They were getting their engineering degrees, and they were co-oping there. and they got off work, and I had this cabin. We had two of them actually down along the river. It's where my dad grew up. My grandpa actually died in that cabin. Been in my family for years, and in the basement is the coolest thing, man. It's like a Rocky movie or something. Looked like somewhere he'd go to get away from everywhere and train. It was built into the bedrock and the side of the hill, that basement. I had like 2 or 3 little 45-watt light bulbs is all that lit it. And we had like, I had about 1,000 pounds of free weights. We had punching bags, jump ropes, places where you could do dips and pull-ups and things like that. It's a great place to work out, but it looked like a Rambo or Rocky movie place, where he goes to get away from everybody to train for his next battle or his next fight. And so my buddies and I worked out for a couple hours. So I'd been out digging all day, and then I worked out for a couple hours. It was a hot day, and then to cool off, so I was dehydrated. Didn't realize it because I was young. And we had right there on that property, we had a pontoon boat. And then just upstream, about 250 yards probably, there's a sandbar on the other side of the river. Now the river there is only a little over 100 yards wide. It's probably like 100 meters wide or something like that. So we had 2 flotation devices. I can't remember if they were seat cushions or life jackets. We got to the pontoon, so I told my buddies, I said, go ahead and you guys take those. I'll swim without it, which wouldn't normally be a big deal. But here I thought I was going to be cool. My plan was they're going to swim upstream against the current. I'm going to jump in without a flotation device. I'm going to swim straight across. I'm going to run up the beach. I'm going to be sitting there like, what in the heck are you losers doing? What took you so long? That was my plan. So I let them get a head start, and then I jump in. And, it's like I said, it's only 100 meters across that river. It's not a long swim at all. And I'm a decent, I'm not a competitive swimmer, but I'm a decent swimmer. But remember, I'm hot and I'm dehydrated. So I get out there and everything's fine. I get about halfway across the river and my left arm starts to cramp up, which wasn't a big deal. My dad taught me to swim with just using your legs or just using your arms or whatever. So I'm like, I still got an arm and 2 legs. I'm good. I go a little further, and then my left leg starts to cramp up. So it like completely locks up in a Charlie horse, but I've still got my whole right side. So I'm good. I'm still swimming. Then my right leg cramps up. And I'm like, okay, I'm good. I still got my right arm. I go a little bit further, and my right arm starts cramping up. And then I panicked. What I should have done is relax, but instead I just like tensed up, and I'm fighting. I'm flinging that right arm for everything I've got, trying to swim with one arm and get to the other side. And I could just feel the tension in both my shoulders and the back of my neck building up. And I was just about to pass out. I was just about to wide out. Everything was just like tensing up in the back of my neck, the base of my skull. And I thought, oh my God, I'm going to drown right here in front of the house, where my grandpa died, where it's my grandma's cabin, and I'm going to die right here. And I'm an only child. I was the last of my family, and I thought it's going to end right here because I'm an idiot and I'm going to drown myself. And then my dad's advice popped into my head, and I remembered what he said. And instead of fighting it, I kind of like bobbed my head and thrust because I didn't have any arms or legs. And I got myself turned over on my back. I pushed my stomach up in the air and tilted my chin back, and I just started floating. And I floated for about 10 seconds, and all of a sudden my left arm uncramped, and then my right arm uncramped, and then gradually finally after about 30 seconds, everything uncramped, and I just like did the backstroke over to the other side. So when I get out, I'm like a quarter mile downstream from my buddies. So instead of being cool, I look like a total idiot. Then I had to walk like a quarter mile barefoot through the weeds up to the sandbar. And I got there, and they said, we saw you struggling. It scared us to death because they said there was nothing we could have done. We were way too far away. So I almost drowned that day. And if it hadn't been for my dad's advice, I would have drowned. So Dad saved my life. So that's something you want to keep in mind. Now, the story that haunts me to this day, it's kind of hard to, I don't think about it that much, but sometimes late at night I do. I'm thinking about it now. It's been over 20 years ago. I think it's probably 2001. I can't remember the exact year. And my dad knew this lady down in Shoals, Indiana, which is about 20 miles south of here. She had a great big farm on the White River with lots of arrowheads. So I went down there, got permission to hunt arrowheads. She had a son that was about 18 or 19, Matthew. Matthew Furman was his name. And a real nice kid. He actually might have been a professional baseball player at some point. He was a heck of a pitcher. And he had the build for it. He was 6'5", and a lot of people think their kid's going to be a Major League Baseball player, but the kid's 5'7" or 5'8". It's probably not going to happen. But he actually had the build to be a professional pitcher. Long and lanky, athletic. He was a heck of a pitcher. And I remember I went down there, and he had a collection. His father had passed away young, and he had some arrowheads that his dad had and his grandpa and stuff. And so I identified them for him, and we went arrowhead hunting together. And I was trying to be a mentor to him and whatnot, be a big brother, which he's almost a foot taller than me, so it's kind of funny, but I was being like a big brother to him and trying to mentor him. And I remember very specifically, we're standing right down there by the river. And for some reason, that story about when I was his age popped into my mind, and I almost told him about that time I almost drowned swimming across the river, the story I just told you. I don't know why, other than the fact we're close to the river. There was no other reason I would have told that, and I didn't tell him. And the reason I remember almost telling him is a few months later, he was supposed to go back to school, and he decided to stay one more day with his mom, one more day of summer, to be with her, and they went swimming in a farm pond with some other people, and they got all done. And here's the parallels. You're saying he was like about 19, in great shape, like I was when that happened to me. He had been swimming all day and doing stuff in the heat all day, like I'd been outdoors all day. They're ready to leave, and there was an inner tube out in the pond, and they said, "Well, we'll just let it blow." He said, "No, I'll swim out and get it." So he jumped in and got about halfway across the pond, started struggling, and went down and never came up. So I often wonder, what if I would have told him that story? Maybe he would have relaxed, turned over and floated for a few seconds, maybe been a little embarrassed in front of his mom and the other people, but he might have survived, and that's haunted me to this day. I don't guilt myself. It's like my dad told his mom when that happened, because she was feeling, guilt and different feelings. He said, if he hadn't stayed home with you, he might have went to a baseball game and got hit in the head with a baseball in his pitching and died that way. I mean, we just never know when our time's going to come. But that's kind of bothered me to this day. So I used to be a school teacher, and I told this story that I just told you about what happened to me, and the story about Matthew. I told it to every class I had. So I've told hundreds of people the story. I don't know that I've saved anybody. I've not had any former student come back and say, "Man, you saved my life with that story. I was going to drown." Maybe they have, maybe they haven't. I don't know that I have, but maybe this will save somebody out there that watches this YouTube video. That's my hope. But don't ever fight the current, and don't ever panic. The harder you fight the water, the quicker you run out of breath. You can float on your back all day long. You can do like an elementary backstroke or side stroke all day long. Don't fight it. And you may think you're a good swimmer. You may be a great swimmer, but it's a whole different thing. You fall in the middle of a big lake or the ocean or a river, and there's no rope right there, nobody there to help you. It plays tricks on your mind. I've been through it firsthand. So keep calm, and you'll survive just about any situation in water. But you've got to learn to keep calm, and don't ever fight that current. There's no, unless you're about to go over a dam. I mean, there are a few circumstances where you got to, but generally speaking, just let it carry you. Just drift with it, angle over to the bank. Don't wear yourself out. Hopefully this will save somebody's life. Hopefully none of you get in that situation, but if you do, I hope this saves your life. All right, I have gone out and made a couple, not found a lot lately. Conditions aren't good, but I have found a few arrowheads lately. So I've done my public service announcement, and now I'm going to show you a real quick arrowhead video that I hope you all enjoy. Thank you for watching. Barely saw this one in the shadows, but looks like I got me a real nice little perk point here. See that light colored shirt? Here we go. That is sweet. Try to get a good focus on it. Not sure the material type. It's translucent. That's a beaut though, just laying there right underneath that rock. It is an extremely hot day for October, and because the weather's been so beautiful, there have been a whole lot of people walk. So this place I'm at, it's like 1,000 people have walked it in the last couple days, but that's why you don't ever give up, because they can easily miss something. So we've got some kind of a piece right here. I don't know if it'll be whole or broken, but let's see what we got. Wow, that's a beaut. No grinding on the base. I'll have to clean it up. I thought maybe it's a Snyder's, but it's looking almost more Kirkish. But anyway, I'd say at least 15 people. This is a Monday, and over the weekend I'd say 15 people have walked within 2 or 3 feet of this and somehow missed it.